You are here because you felt the chill. You clicked because the phrase that defines my life is a paradox that defies faith. I saved you from the crash. Now what? I am Sarah Jennings, and I am going to prove to you that, at one point in my life, evil had my number, my name, and my soul, and was ready to give me what I asked for. But God intervened, and the irony of his rescue is the proof of his love. The voice I heard was not the one I expected. It was the voice I had rejected, and it asked me a question that compels me to live even today. Before you scroll, before you pass on to the next video, listen carefully. I know you've seen hundreds of stories online. You've heard testimonies, conspiracies, tales of terror, and perhaps you think this is just another one. But it is not, because if you are here now, it is not by chance. Something brought you here. And perhaps, just perhaps, that something is God trying to reach you before it is too late. This is not a story about religion. It is not even a story about me. It is about how light and darkness are not what they seem, and how one wrong step, one naive choice, can open a door that changes everything. My name is Sarah Jennings, and what I'm about to tell you is not a movie. It happened to me, and I can still feel the cold in my bones when I remember. When I was a teenager, I didn't believe in evil. I thought demons were myths, angels were metaphors, and Halloween was just harmless fun. I was 17, living in Oak Haven, North Carolina, a normal American girl in a quiet town, hungry for meaning and desperate to belong. What I didn't know was that the devil doesn't come for the people who believe in him. He comes for those who don't, for those who are vulnerable. This is the first and most crucial truth I learned. Deception seeks the void that the search for meaning leaves. I was the perfect target because I believed that faith was just poetry, not an armor. I longed to be special, to have some secret, wisdom, and that vanity was the door that opened to the darkness. It all began with Kira, who was beautiful, magnetic, and whose green eyes sparkled when she talked about energy and freedom. She told me that the church lied, that true spirituality was about finding the light within oneself. I desperately wanted to believe her, but I learned that good things can be the most dangerous lies, packaged for the soul's consumption. She invited me to the circle of light, a place the devil carefully builds, full of welcoming smiles and the promise of forbidden knowledge. He seduces you and disarms you. I repeated the mantras, I am light. The light is in me. I am one with the source. It seemed poetic, harmless, but it was the architecture of deception. The enemy didn't want my soul with fire. He wanted it with flattery. He made me feel important, part of a special generation, souls awakened to restore the earth's balance. But their balance required my sacrifice, my silence, and my vow. My descent accelerated until October 31st, the Satanic New Year, the day Kira invited me to the Festival of Renewal. I didn't know I was driving toward a blood ritual, which would feature a pregnant woman as the sacrifice. Everything in me screamed to run, but my body froze. I felt as if invisible chains were holding me, trapping me in that cursed place. And then, in the middle of the demonic chanting, in a silence that only existed within my soul, I heard the words, the command from God. Get out. I ran, but the terror did not stop. It followed me home, imprisoning me in fear and haunting. My everyday life became a terror replay. I started waking up religiously at 3:33 a.m. every night, the same time the rituals had begun. I tried to pray, but every time I said the name of Jesus, something inside me choked, suffocating the word in my throat. The cruel irony is that, at that time, evil had seduced me so thoroughly that I was making requests in the darkness, and evil was complying. That demon had answered the prayer of my empty heart, offering a false peace and trapping my soul. My rescue in the accident was the final proof. God intervened to silence the voice that had deceived me for so long. Right there, in the middle of that dark street, I understood. He had never abandoned me. Even in my darkest moments when I was making demonic vows, he was watching, waiting, fighting for me. The voice that saved me didn't give me comfort. It gave me a mission. Hypnotic CTA. If you need God to flip the script in your life, subscribe now. Use the dagger emoji in the comments. Your deliverance begins with your confession. Start a Vovó Ruthie Mae story, combined script body. You have already thought about the fact that there are stories so strong, so profound, that they seem to have been torn directly from life itself and written with tears? The pain is so raw, so palpable, that it transcends the page and grips your soul, demanding attention, demanding a choice. What I'm about to share with you now is not fiction. It is not a fairy tale. It is not a fabricated story. It is flesh. It is blood. It is pain. And it is also victory. It is the kind of narrative that begins in the suffocating darkness of the night where hope seems like a distant and cruel memory, but ends bathed in the glorious healing light of faith. My name is Grandma Alara Mae, and before I continue, I want to be perfectly clear. I am not just telling you a story. I am opening a scar, a fragile part of my life, a wound that only the passage of time and the grace of God allowed to close. I ask you, listen to this testimony not as if it were just another video on your feed, but as if it were a whisper of revelation directly into your spirit. Because the moment you open your heart to every word, allowing the raw truth of survival to penetrate, something powerful can begin to change within you. My journey did not begin with lullabies or joyful hugs. It began in the heart of the American lowlands, Tupelo, Mississippi, a place rich in history, tradition, and silent isolation. It is a land where the cypress trees weep and the Spanish moss hangs heavy, carrying not only humidity, but the weight of generations of secrets. In our community, tradition was a chain, often disguised as duty. My motherhood, which should have been a time of fulfillment, was soon marked by the relentless pressure of rejection, the terror of domestic violence, the crushing hand of tyranny, and the ever-present shadow of fear. I had to witness things no mother should witness. I watched my beautiful and vibrant daughters treated not as beloved children, but as bargaining chips in cruel negotiations for forced marriages, transactions where their futures were traded for. Land, money, or simply the order my husband Silas desired. I lived through the desperate hardship of poverty, the kind that gnaws at your stomach and strips your dignity. I spent countless sleepless nights, huddled over Joy's small body burning with fever, silently praying, bargaining with a God whose silence often seemed like abandonment. And in the end, I faced the deepest pain a soul can bear, the death of a child, forcing me to bury my own daughter with my bare hands in the cold, unforgiving lowland soil. But please, do not misunderstand me. Do not think this is just a testimony of sadness. No, it is also a story of fury, of promise, of desperate flight into the night, of surviving relentless persecution, and of discovering miraculous shelter where I thought none existed. It is a narrative of hope and eventual reconstruction. It is about discovering that there truly is such a thing as marriage for true and immaculate love. It is about realizing that survival is possible for those who refuse to surrender their soul. It is about learning line by agonizing line that faith in God is stronger than any oppressive silence. And that true liberation always comes the moment you finally rise up with the last flicker of courage left in your heart. That is why I tell you not to leave this video before the end. Every part of this account, every tear, every scar, every moment of fear is like a mirror that can reveal a forgotten strength within you. Perhaps you have faced deep wounds in your own family. Perhaps you know only too well the heavy weight of social judgment and malicious gossip that tries to keep you chained. Perhaps you look at your life today and think there is absolutely no way out. That darkness is your inevitable destiny. But I am here to testify that you are wrong. There is a way out. There is a new life. There is victory. The same hand that pulled me out of the darkness of the South is reaching out to you right now. So, before we continue, I ask you for an act of solidarity, an act of faith. Subscribe to this channel right now. It is not just about following videos. It is about forming an unbreakable chain of faith, testimonies, and transformation. Every subscription is another powerful step in spreading messages of hope so that more people who feel exactly like you or I once felt find the strength not to give up. Take a deep breath, enter this raw story with me, and prepare yourself. After you hear this testimony, you will never look at prayer, faith, and the fierce, enduring strength of a mother the same way again. The truth is that my family was never what the community of Tupelo thought. To outsiders, we looked like any other hard-working household. But behind closed doors, our walls echoed with violence, threats, and a tyranny that crushed both body and soul. I thought motherhood would protect me from despair. I thought a child in my arms would soften the heart of Silas, my husband, who carried more bitterness than love. But I was wrong. The night my youngest, Joy, was born, the cold chilled me to the bone. I remember the wind whistling through the pine trees, a sound that seemed like the earth itself was mourning what was to come. The night before Naomi was to be taken, something inside me broke, but rebuilt itself. Silas was passed out on the sofa. Naomi stood in the corner, her small bag in her hands, trembling but ready. I grabbed her hand and Joy's vow burning in my heart and whispered, "It's time. Tonight, we run." We moved like shadows through the house, praying the floorboards would not creak. The cold bit into our skin as we slipped outside, the moon casting long, haunting shadows. For the first time in years, the air smelled of possibility. Every step was an act of faith. Every breath, a plea for protection. My heart raced at the thought of Silas waking. But in that moment, fear and faith danced together in my chest. I trusted that God would honor the promise I had made with blood, soil, and tears. We ran toward Dr. Solomon's house, carrying only a handful of clothes, a piece of bread, and the weight of our broken souls. The night of our escape carved itself into my memory like fire on stone. Silas lay collapsed on the sofa, lost to his drink. Fear clawed at me, but the courage born from grief was more fierce. I refused to bury another daughter alive. Naomi trusted me to lead her out of the darkness. We stepped into the cold night carrying Grandma Mae's worn Bible. Every step on that dirt road was a prayer and a risk. I whispered, "Lord, guide us. Protect us from persecution. Cover us with your deliverance." At the edge of the next village stood Dr. Solomon's house. When we knocked, the sky was still black. He opened the door, eyes tired but gentle, and without hesitation said, "Come in. Here, you are safe." For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift from my chest. Naomi curled up in a corner, and within minutes, she was asleep without fear. I sat in silence, listening to her steady breathing. And for the first time since Joy's death, I breathed deeply too. But freedom is never free. Society's judgment reached us even from afar. The gossip spread quickly. She left her husband. She dishonored him. She broke tradition. But none of it mattered to me anymore. I had endured too many losses to let their tongues enslave me. For me, survival was no longer shame. It was victory. We worked hard to keep ourselves afloat. I washed clothes, scrubbed floors, cooked for pennies. Naomi helped where she could. We fought poverty together, side by side, but with dignity intact. Every coin earned by our hands tasted like hope. It was in this new season that Pastor Josiah appeared. He was a man of faith and community, his hands calloused from labor and service. Unlike the men who once bargained for Naomi's life, Josiah never looked at her as property, but as a soul. He brought wood on cold nights, offered help without asking for anything in return. Over time, affection bloomed. Naomi, marked by rejection and the shadow of her father's tyranny, found in Josiah a pure love. It wasn't a bargain. It was a choice. It was a marriage for love. When Josiah asked for Naomi's hand, I looked into my daughter's eyes. This time I said softly, "You decide. Only if your heart says yes." Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered her answer, "Yes." And in that moment, I saw the reconstruction of our story. What began in ashes was now rebuilt with light. Years later, as I sat on the porch, watching Naomi's children, my grandchildren, play in the yard, I opened the old notebook I carried and wrote, "Flight, sorrow, persecution, but also faith, deliverance, hope, and victory." I learned that it wasn't my strength that saved us. It was the hand of God guiding us, protecting us, loving us when no one else would. The family once defined by violence was now a monument to love and survival. I, Grandma Alara Mae, carry the certainty that every tear I shed watered seeds of faith, liberation, and hope. My testimony is not one of despair, but of victory. If I can leave anything behind, let it be this: never accept tyranny as destiny. There is always a way out. There is always reconstruction. There is always hope. If you have made it this far, then you know that this is not just a story about a woman, her children, and the wounds of a broken home. Above all, it is a testimony that darkness is never the final word. The family the enemy tried to destroy was held together by the hand of God. Motherhood marked by pain was redeemed in love. Rejection, tyranny, poverty, illness, even the death of a child and the burial with my own hands. None of that was the end. All of it was transformed into promise. Flight, shelter, reconstruction, hope, marriage for love, and finally, deliverance. I discovered that it is not human strength that keeps us standing. It is the grace and mercy of God. And that is why I speak directly to you now. No matter the pain you carry, no matter how heavy the burden, no matter the persecution that hunts you or the scars that refuse to heal, there is a living God and His hand is extended to you right now. Perhaps your life seems like a never-ending cycle of loss, sadness, and disappointment. Perhaps you have even thought there is no way out, but let me tell you with certainty, there is. There is new life. There is deliverance. There is victory. And that path has a name, Jesus Christ. He is the one who turns mourning into dancing, shame into honor, weakness into strength. He is the one who takes a story written in pain and rewrites it with hope. And I want to invite you right now to give your life to Jesus. Speak to Him exactly as you are and say, Lord Jesus, I surrender my life to you. Break the chains that bind me. Free me from fear. Transform my story. I choose to live with you and for you. This simple act of surrender has the power to change everything, because when you surrender to Him, heaven opens, chains fall, your soul finds peace, and your life finds purpose. And I also invite you, subscribe to this channel right now. It is not just about watching a video. It is about walking together in faith, side by side, and spreading testimonies that heal, deliver, and give hope. Remember this, no prayer is wasted. Every tear shed in God's presence rises like incense before His throne. And if He transformed my story, He can transform yours too. Today you have a choice. Continue carrying the pain alone, or place your life in Jesus' hands and experience true deliverance. I chose Him and I was never the same again. Now it is your turn. The kingdom of God is advancing, and it is time for you to rise up.